Hi crafters, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to make the most amazing background ever, and this will help to showcase your favorite stamps. Hope you enjoy. So the first thing I'm going to do is decide where the sun is going to be on my background. And then I'm going to cover this area in distress ink, some antique linen, and then I'm going to use a mask that I've cut out on masking paper. Now I want the sun to be slightly larger than the mask so that I have a bit of a glow around the area. So now I'm going to apply some salty ocean and picked raspberry. First I'll put the picked raspberry just at the bottom half of the card, the background. And then I will apply some salty ocean on the other half. So one of the great things about this background is that you only need these 3 colors of ink. Now once you've blended the salty ocean with the picked raspberry, it will create a 4th color in the middle of the background. Now right now you can see just a hint of that beautiful purple color, but as we blend the inks together, that will start to appear. Now I purposely left the entire blending process on here, just in case you're new to using distress inks, so that you can see how it develops. Now once I'm happy with the blending, I'm going to dry this completely and then use my clear Versamark ink over the blue and purpley area. Now the trick to doing this is you need to make sure that the ink is completely dry so that you don't ruin your clear ink pad. And now I'm going to put some Distress Embossing Glaze on top, and I'm using broken china. For this effect, I've discovered that just using a similar shade works. So now I'm going to heat from underneath until my embossing glaze is completely dry, and you'll see it goes from opaque to transparent. So satisfying. So now I'm going to apply the same Versamark ink on the pinkish area of my card. And I don't need to worry about the ink being applied in a straight line because I like it to be a little bit haphazard. Now again, I don't have the same color of embossing glaze, but I do have the Tattered Rose, which is a pink shade, so I'm going to use that. And then I'm going to heat it from below until the embossing glaze is completely set and completely melted. Now you could try this with clear embossing powder if you prefer, or if you don't have the distress glazes. But you probably won't get the same rich effect with the tinted or the colored embossing glazes. So now I'm going to remove the mask and apply some color on my sun or my moon, whatever you want it to be. I'm going to use a finger dauber for this instead of applying it directly from the ink pad. And that way I can be more precise with the ink. And I'm also going to put some around the moon so that I've got a bit of a halo effect. Now I do have the antique linen embossing glaze, so I'm going to apply that, and then I'll heat set it from below. And because I've mixed the antique linen embossing glaze onto the blue, it gives us that beautiful greeny color as well, which is just gorgeous. And as you tilt the background, you can see just how beautiful it is. So now I'm going to add some stamps in the foreground. I'm going to use some from this set called Polynesian Paradise for My Favorite Things. And I'm going to stamp the main image of the girl in the grass skirt, as well as some of the animals. So I'm going to stamp the parrot and the chameleon. And now there's a really nice flower cluster, so I'm going to stamp that twice. And I'm also going to stamp the toucan. So I have the matching dies for this set. I don't know about you, but I only get dies for my absolute favorite stamp sets. So I'm going to line these up, and then I'm going to cut out the images. Now, while I'm using my die cut machine, I'm going to cut out these palm trees and trunks from the Tropical Backdrop Lawn Fawn set. Now these I'm going to cut in black, and you can tell these are one of my frequently used dies because they're quite stubborn and I have to use the pokey tool to get them out. So I'm going to cut this twice. Each time it cuts 2 large trees and 1 small tree and the coordinating trunks. So I'm really only going to use the large trees for this, so the smaller trees I'll set aside for another day. Now I'm also going to use this grass die from Lawn Fawn, and because my card is 5 by 7, I will just cut it once and then slide the die over, lining up the end, and then cut it again, and that way my grass piece will be long enough for my card. I love dies that can be easily adapted to different card sizes. So now I'm going to attach the grass and the trees to my background, and I'm just using white PVA glue for this. Now to make sure the grass blades stick, I'm just applying the glue with a fine tip applicator, and then I'm going to push it down onto my card. Now the great thing about this being covered in embossing glaze is it gives it a bit of a slick surface, so you can easily wipe off extra glue that might stick to your card. Now once I'm happy with the place of that, I will add some of the trunks, and I'm going to put the palm trees on a little bit haphazardly so that it looks a bit more interesting. I think that when you have such a beautiful background, you don't want to take any of the focus away from it. So this is why I used the black palm trees and black grass on this. So I'm just going to apply one of the tree trunks horizontally on the card. This way it looks like a branch and I can use it for one of my animals. And some of the palm tree leaves I'm going to put so that they're half off the card, just to make it a bit more interesting. Now I colored all of the images for this card with Copic markers, but I didn't include this in the video as I wanted the focus to be on the actual background rather than on Copic coloring. So I'm just going to decide where each of my images is going to be. And I ended up coloring my chameleon the same 3 colors as my flower bundles, because I thought it would be fun for him to be sort of hiding in the flowers. So I've put the toucan on the branch there, and then I placed the flower bunches. And then once I'm happy with the placement of those flower bunches, I'll put the chameleon on top. And I just love this Polynesian girl. I've made a few cards with this, which is why I treated myself to the matching coordinating die set. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll notice that one of the stamps is missing, the parrot, and I saved him for the inside of the card. Sometimes it's fun to add one of your main images with the sentiment, and it ties the whole card together. So I'm just going to adjust those flowers one last time until I'm absolutely happy with them, and then I'll adhere everything together. So now I'm going to use my scissors and trim off the outside edge of the card, just where those palm tree branches and leaves are overhanging. And then I will start working on my outside sentiment. Now this stamp set comes with a whole bunch of sentiments that would be perfect on the front of the card. I'm going to use the one that says Mahalo. So I'm going to stamp it in VersaFine Onyx Black so it's nice and dark. And then I'm going to trim my paper and line it with black paper behind it. That way the sentiment matches my background. Now, of course, you can always skip the sentiment if you prefer yours a little bit more subtle. So once I've attached that, I'm going to use some double-sided tape and put the whole card base onto a 5 by 7 inch card blank. Now the best way to line these up, I find, is if you have your card base closed and then you line up the seam. It works best for me anyway. Now I did notice a bit of extra card on the right there, so I'm just going to trim that off with my scissors. And then I'm going to put my sentiment on the inside. And I'm using a birthday sentiment from this Hero Arts stamp set, along with that spare parrot that we stamped earlier. This one says, "Have a beautiful birthday," which goes so well with my beautiful background. So once I've stamped that in black ink, I'm going to glue on my parrot. And then my beautiful birthday card is complete. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you found it inspiring. Be sure to subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!